Welcome to the RD2BE podcast. Each week we sit down with a different registered dietitian nutritionist to showcase the diversity of opportunity in the dietetics profession. Our aim is to dismantle the notion that there is a traditional career path. I'm Carl Barnes, the registered dietitian behind the scenes of RD2BE.
And I am Jenna Warnock, the RD2BE host. Our RD guests share their stories, career paths, and advice to help students like us succeed in the profession. This episode is part of our mini-series featuring the Accreditation Council for Education in Nutrition and Dietetics, otherwise known as ACEND. We are creating this series to clear up common confusion and misconceptions about ACEND and its relation to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, as well as the Commission on Dietetic Registration. We're also in a super transformative phase of dietetics with a new master's degree requirement, dietetics application process, and ACEND also created some new advanced practice doctoral standards where understanding these topics are crucial for pushing our profession forward. Join our conversation with Dr. Rayane AbuSabha. She's the Executive Director of ACEND, and in this series, we're going to discuss what ACEND is, their new standards, and what steps you can take to uplift and advocate for our profession with these standards. Welcome back to another week of the RD2BE podcast. I'm your host, Jenna, and we are continuing our wonderful series with ACEND's Executive Director, Dr. Rayane AbuSabha. We have been going through every turn of topics in dietetics with her, and she is an absolute wealth of knowledge and just always continuing to give to help us set ourselves up for success to becoming dietitians. And we're going to cover a topic today that we both agreed is rather just not discussed that much in the dietetics profession. You always talk about, like starting your undergrad in dietetics and starting, just when you start college. But we wanted to go deeper into the roots and discuss high school, because what we've heard over the years and just on this podcast is a lot of people start their degrees, but then halfway through is when they find out about dietetics, and then they have to go backwards, figure out DPDs, all good things like that. And so Dr. AbuSabha is going to take time with us today to go through anyone who's in high school or anyone who's very early on in figuring out what they, quote unquote, want to do with their life, and for deciding what direction they want to take in college. And so Dr. AbuSabha is here today to discuss how you can prepare for dietetics while you're in high school. So thank you so much for joining us yet again today.
Thank you, Jenna, and hi. Thanks everyone for being here, and I'm always happy to be part of this podcast.
Awesome.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And so first, because this video or this episode is for those who are probably just first scraping the surface as dietetics being an option as a career. So could you provide a general overview for the steps to becoming a dietitian?
Absolutely. Definitely dietetics is not an easy pathway to do, because there's so many other options to do it. But if we take it in general and the big scheme of things, there are really two pathways. The first pathway is you earn an undergraduate degree in a program that is accredited by ACEND. And we call those undergraduate degrees Didactic Program in Dietetics, or DPD. We have over 200 of these programs across the US. So hopefully you can find a DPD program right there. That is one of the best pathways to do. You complete and then once you finish the DPD, you apply to an internship, which is a practicum. And that practicum gives you about 1,000 hours of supervised practice. So it's an application to enter the practicum, almost like you're applying to grad school. You apply and then you get accepted. Plenty of spaces out there. We have not been having trouble with students getting accepted. If you do well in your DPD, you should be easily accepted into a supervised practice. And then while you're doing the dietetic internship, or after or a little before, you want to complete your master's degree, because after, since 2024, the master's degree is required to complete the dietetic, to be able to sit for the RDN exam, for the registered dietitian exam. So, just make sure that master's degree is a little bit related to nutrition. It could be food service, public health, food and nutrition, dietetics, clinical nutrition, it could be business, but it has to be related to another nutrition topic. Make sure you're not getting one in basket weaving or in something completely off, But that's the first pathway. The second pathway is you can earn a graduate degree in a coordinated program. So if you have a bachelor's degree, you're an undergrad, you go get a bachelor. You're a high school student, you go get a bachelor's degree somewhere. You can then apply and get accepted to a coordinated program. And the coordinated program gives you the graduate education, the graduate degree, all the ACEND requirements, plus the internship piece, all in one single program. So that's one program. Instead of doing DPD, DI, you can do the coordinated program and pass the exam. We don't have as many coordinated programs around the nation. So, and the slots in the coordinated programs are a lot more limited. So if you can't get to do a coordinated program, your DPD pathway is definitely a very nice, great way to get trained. So either one of the pathways will get you to pass the RDA, to take the RDN exam.
Awesome. And I'm sure if someone has like looked up the paths towards becoming a dietitian, they may have been seeing MSDI thrown around a lot. And so can you kind of shine light a little bit on which bucket that would fall into for if they see MSDI?
Yeah, great question. So the MSDIs are really part of that first pathway. You go do your didactic program in dietetics, your DPD, and then you can apply either to the DI or the master's separately, or you can apply to an MSDI, which combines the master's and the dietetic internship in one. So it becomes almost like a coordinated program in some ways. So yeah, you can do either way. We have probably about 150 of those. So we have quite a few of those around. There's quite a lot of options in dietetics.
Yes, and a common thing that I have heard is that the demand is high and supply is a little bit low. And so I think you're saying very good words of encouragement where if you're interested in dietetics, that field is very open for you.
Oh my gosh, not only is it open, you will be hired before you graduate. So definitely a lot of demands for dietitian, and definitely we have spaces and we have the programs to grab students. There's plenty of need for dietitians.
Absolutely. And I think that segues nicely into the next question of I feel like with a lot of allied health professions, it's very much like A plus B equals C as far as progressing to getting to that credential. And so why are there so many different approaches to becoming a dietitian?
Yes, that is a positive, and it can also be a little negative with being confusing. And this is why we're doing a podcast on it, because it's not so easy and so simple. But the thing with dietetics is often it is so great. If you're a high school student right now and you're listening to this podcast, know that you're already years ahead of the game, because almost 50% of students in nutrition go get another degree. Could it be marketing or psychology or some other degree? And then they wake up one day and they're like, what am I doing? I'm not making money and I don't like this degree and I'm not happy. I've always wanted to be a dietitian and now I want to become go into dietetics. So this is one of the reasons we have so many options, because they give us flexibility. Some of the students start in undergraduate degree straight from high school, but actually almost half of them come to us from biology, public health, psychology, culinary arts, and that's one of the reasons the different pathways give them the flexibility. But also, not everyone can relocate, right? And not everyone can afford a traditional university experience and a full-time program. These days, we have more students who work than they don't work. So again, having all these different options allows students to do distance internships and distance programs and set up their own sites. Complicates things, but gives you options when you need them. And it just always gives a lot of flexibility for those who wish to change their career. I have one advice to any high school student who is interested in nutrition. Don't let anyone talk you out of it, because I can bet money in 5 or 10 years, when you finish an undergrad degree you're not super happy with, you go work, you're going to come back and be knocking on the door and wanting to be in nutrition. It happens so often. So if you're interested in it, highly recommend that you start considering it seriously.
Absolutely. And I'm very glad that you gave that piece of advice because I feel like with a lot of people going through dietetics, they're told, like, oh, why not do like PA? Why not do nursing? Why not do all these other allied health professions? Where if you're interested in nutrition, becoming a dietitian is the most direct and the most impactful way that you can practice with nutrition. And I'm really glad that we have this episode and that you mentioned like for if you're in high school and you're interested, this is the best time to like strike while the iron's hot. And also you have so much more time to prepare, unlike a lot of people who are halfway through their careers and they switch and then they just find out about dietetics. And so being in high school and having this opportunity to really plan and make the most of your educational experience is, I think, really, really great. And for those students that are in high school, so then it sounds like with the different options, would you recommend their main direction be going into an undergraduate degree with a DPD attached?
Absolutely. I think the easiest pathway to do is to go into an undergraduate degree with a DPD. That because then your DPD program is guiding you through the process and you're maturing into it and you are really get introduced to dietetics and you start to be extremely knowledgeable about it. Also, you end up not wasting years. If you go into a program that's not a DPD, every single student that came to me with a degree, be it biology, be it whatever, they still needed about a year and a half on top of their undergrad degree to catch up to graduate from a DPD. Because you can't enter dietetics internship without the DPD. And you need all these courses that no other program will give you other than the DPD. Now, again, I don't want to exclude the coordinated programs. There are graduate and coordinated programs that gives you the coursework. You can start them while you're, right from freshman year. But again, those are not many and they don't have a lot of spots. But if you can find one and they're near you, that is another very viable option.
Awesome, yeah. And then kind of using that to help set these students in high school up for choosing that right college or university. So kind of hearing first, like, okay, it's probably best to find a undergraduate degree in nutrition and dietetics with that DPD certificate. So kind of walking through and giving your pieces of advice for these students on choosing the right university for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just make sure that, like you said, Jenna, find that undergraduate program that is accredited by ACEND. And the name is DPD, Didactic Program in Dietetics. That's going to be your shortest way through dietetics. Because if you go into a regular nutrition and dietetics program and it's not accredited by ACEND, now guess what? You can't move forward. You need to go back to a DPD and take whatever courses you missed. Then you just the next want to look at the outcomes of the program. When you're talking to the faculty, when you're looking on the website, check the website, look at their pass rate on the registered dietitian exam. That is a big one. Look how many of them get accepted into a dietetic internship. That can tell you because a program will take students from programs that are good. So if the program is not taking enough if the program not a lot of students from a program are going to an internship, that may tell you the program is not that great. So so look at the number of faculty in the program. Talk to the students if you can. Just look at the university that fits you. Do you want a large university? Do you want a small university? Do you like being an unknown, just a dot in a big class? Or then go to a big state school? Or do you feel like you want that connection and you want the faculty to know your name? Then go to a small college. And of course, dietetics and DPDs, we have all over. We have ones in major schools and we have ones in very, very small programs with less than 10 students in class. So look at the program and see what fits you best. And also, I know that my daughter's always saying, well, I don't want to live in a small town. I want to live in a big town. Look at that, right? You're going to be there for 4 years. Make sure that they count and that you have a good life when you're in those 4 years, be it that you like small towns, farming towns, or be it if you like something big. So there's just a lot, just like any undergrad program, you're going to use those ideas to pick a program that works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think now it's kind of then looking deeper into that coursework that a student could expect. So, like having that DPD coursework integrated into that bachelor's degree, it similarly to the different programs in dietetics, there's also offers a lot of flexibility for how you complete that DPD coursework. Like, for example, community college, gap year grad school, there's a lot of different avenues, even when you're doing your undergrad foundational coursework. So when it comes to the student weighing out options, like whether it's affordability, whether it's like housing, where they're going to move. Do you have any insights or recommendations for if a student's like, oh, well, what if I want to do community college first? Will that impede on me completing my DPD coursework, or is it better to just stick the 4 years at the same university? Do you have any insights into that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the best and most efficient and affordable way to go is community college, then undergrad. We know that many students want that 4 year experience. They want the 4 years and they want to be in a university. If you can afford it and you want to do it, absolutely go for it. It's, college years are the best years of one's life. They're awesome, right? But not everybody can afford a 4 year degree. Not only that, if you are willing, if that does not matter to you that much, that college experience, save yourself $50,000, save yourself $100,000, save yourself some money and go to the community college. The community colleges, not only are they affordable, you can probably work and pay them at the same time and come out with zero debt from the community college. But also remember, the universities, they get judged on the strength of their freshman class. So when you're applying from high school as a freshman, your GPA, your background, your high school you're coming from, all of that, how you score on the different national exams, all of that is what counts to a university's admission, and that counts to the ranking of the university. Once the freshman year is gone, they don't care as much. So the freshman year, they're going to be very particular about who they let to come into the university. Now, you go to a community college for 2 years, finish the 65 credits at the community college, get all your basics that you need for the DPD, and then transfer into a university. Your likelihood of being accepted into that university doubles, because they really do not mind that they get students that are transfers with lower GPAs or lower TOEFL scores or lower SAT scores. That doesn't matter anymore. The transfers will not count on the quality of the university. I used to always recommend my students go to a community college. And my students, when they came to me, by the time they graduated from my program, they had barely $20,000, $30,000 in debt. Now, of course, that's 10 years ago, but compare that, it's going to be like $40,000 now with the difference in price. Still huge, huge advantage to have coming out with $75,000 and $100,000 the way most of the students are coming out these days.
Yeah.
I highly recommend community college, but you can, a university college experience is almost like a wedding, right? You can't take that away from the person's wishes and the hope to experience it. So you decide how much you want it or how much you don't want it.
Absolutely. And I think you worded it beautifully because I am a byproduct of the community college 4 year transfer system, and I 100% chose it based off of what my personal values were. Because my main value was saving money. And so that made the answer very straightforward of, well, I'm just going to stay at home with my parents, work. I did exactly what you mentioned, like pay my school as I went. And because no matter what, whether you do your prerequisite courses at a community college, you're going to have to do the same ones at a 4 year before you do the DPD coursework. Because the DPD coursework you typically do your junior, senior year. You may do a couple your freshman and sophomore year if you do a traditional 4 year, but you can knock it out just as much as if you do all of your prereqs at a community college for 2 years and then transferring. Because what my 4 year degree looked like was 2 years at community college doing all my anatomy and phys, all my bio, all my like all those prereqs. And then I started and transferred in as a junior where I just did DPD coursework for like 2 years straight. And so I was 100% just immersed in dietetics and it kept it fresh. Courses overlapped. It was also, at least for me, how I learned. It was really easy to keep track of all the material because all the competencies, like which are in DPD, coursework, there was like they were kind of communicating with each other across classes, and it was a good way for me to learn. So, but also, I'm glad that you took home that message of that may not be for everyone. And if your value or if your values aren't dead set on just saving as much money as possible and you want to truly like immerse yourself into a college 4 year experience, that's perfectly up to you. And I think it boils it down to there's no right answer. It's just weighing out those pros and cons. Um,
Yeah,
and
absolutely. I agree. And exactly what you went through, Jenna, is what every transfer student I had did. And they were incredibly successful. And no one, by the time they graduate, no one knew that they're transfer or not transfer. You know, that you graduate from that college, be it Cornell, be it Yale, be it Penn State, or whatever it is. You're graduating from the college, even though you did only 2 years there.
Exactly. And like even with the transitioning from community college to a bachelor's degree, like I'm now in grad school doing a PhD, no problem. No one, that's just
No,
one of the
no.
lines on my resume. And as long as you can do what the job wants you to do, that's all that matters. And I think that adds another kind of then lens too, where if someone's trying to find ways of saving money, where, we just kind of gave that overview of like, okay, well, I have these options for undergrad of like ways to save money or do the 4 year, but then, oh, I have to do grad school, and then, oh, I have to do a dietetic internship. And so, kind of now transitioning from all the different avenues that they can go for doing their undergraduate degree, kind of talking more about ways that they can approach that master's degree component with, or like the dietetic internship, that practicum. What are your thoughts on like gap years and how to address grad school, just kind of that whole beast as well, which I'm sure it'll be very similar to the undergrad degree where it's like, depending on you, what direction, but kind of just your thoughts on those options.
Yeah, definitely depending on you and what you can and cannot afford and what you can do. Um, I'm a fan of just finishing straight through, right? Definitely a fan of that. But you may not be able to afford it. It may not work for you. If in any way you can do it, go straight through. Don't stop. But we know a lot of individuals who stopped, took a few gap years, and went back to school because they needed to make some money. It does give you time to know what you want, gives you time to gain experience, and very true that those who take a few gap years come back to the classroom a little bit more informed, a little bit more mature, they study harder. But somehow I worry about gap years. There's a few things to consider. Once you start working, earning that money, it is very hard to get back to school and to get yourself into the school mindset. Not easy. Not easy to go back to being poor. You know, when you're poor, you're poor. You don't think it twice about it. You enjoy it. You love it. You know. But when you now all of a sudden are flush and going to Starbucks every day and doing all the things you want to do, going back to not being able to do that is a hardship. And so think about it. But maybe the gap year, if it can give you money to save, uh, so that you can use it during your schooling and you're disciplined and you know you're going to be committed and come back, then that works for you. So you need to know yourself. From a financial perspective, I think calculate how much money you lose by taking a gap year and working, let's say, at a as a nutrition assistant or working something minimum, you're making 30,000 a year, 35,000 a year, let's say 40,000 a year, right? Versus you taking that extra, finishing and that extra year, instead of taking it as a gap year, becoming an RD, starting at 70,000. There's $30,000 more you just left at the table and you lost. And, so that is the thing that you have to think about. Can you push through and finish? Then push through and finish because you're going to I guarantee you'll make more money as a dietitian than anything you're going to make coming out of undergrad straight with, a science degree or a nutrition degree or something. So things to consider is that, yeah, the gap year might give you a little money now, but you're going to lose money later on.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I that's something that a lot of people grapple with, once they finish their bachelor's degree, where they're like, "Oh, I have a whole other like beast to tackle." And I think you can absolutely see benefit from both sides. It's just exactly what you said, knowing yourself and knowing if you are that person that will for sure like go back if you take that gap year. And I really like how you gave that like finite tip of like financially calculating the loss of if I take this gap year, will it give me a net gain of maybe saving money or things like that versus if I just kind of steamroll through to get done. Because I absolutely feel the same way with why I'm just knocking out all my grad school ahead of time is because I know myself, where the second that I start making that big girl money, I will not want to go back to making grad school money. But that's just because of how my brain is wired, but I'm sure not everyone's brain is wired like that. So you've provided a lot of great advice for what high school students right now can think about and start like churning their, gears as far as like, okay, I have community college versus traditional 4 year to think about. I have coordinated programs, MSDIs. I have a lot of different graduate school options to think about, as well as if taking a gap year is right for me. Now, kind of going more into like finite direction as far as, okay, where can I actually start doing research? And so for this part, I'm going to make sure that you can share your screen, but we kind of want to do more of an exploration into how high school students can start researching programs that actually fit their needs. So I made it so that you can share your screen.
Yeah.
And Dr. AbuSabha is going to kind of do a wonderful walkthrough of the ACEND website to be able to look for programs, which I think will be a really great starting point for students of just like poking around and seeing all the different ways that you can go into dietetics.
Jenna, can you see the screen of the ACEND website?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So the first thing you want to do is talk to program directors, right? To see what program you want, research the programs, make sure that you see the programs that you want. And so I'm going to give you a tip. If you come to the ACEND website, and if you do a search on Google, right, you put ACEND or you put Accreditation Council for Education or Accreditation of Nutrition and Dietetics, it will lead you to ACEND. We're the first thing. So come to the ACEND website. Simple Google search gets you here. And then on the Accreditation Council for Education and Nutrition and Dietetics website, go to the Accredited Dietetics Program Directory. That directory has all the ACEND accredited programs, every single one of them. So you click on that, and we just updated it, and this directory is hot off the press and very clear, hopefully, and easy to navigate. I'm going to go through the filters first so you understand what's on these filters. First, it tells you which degree you want. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Here. So first it says which here on the side in that gray box, you're going to look for the degree offered. If you want the DPD, you're a high school student, you want that bachelor's degree, you're going to put bachelor's here, right? You can decide I want a master's degree right away and see if there are any programs that take you all the way from undergrad to master's, but there's not a lot of those. Your best bet is to go for that undergraduate degree at the bachelor's level. We're going to go down. This admission one, you're looking at, does the program require GREs or not? And then if you don't want the program to require GREs, don't click it. But I know, for example, if you're somebody who has incredible scores, you can put it. But that's, again, for grad school. This is for admission into a dietetic internship program. Go to the program features. Will they accept course credit? Do they have a course credit transfer agreement with a community college? If you're interested with programs that have an agreement with community colleges to see if there's some near you, you can click on that one. And we can skip those ones here. Go to the education format. if you want the program to be fully in person, or to be in person and online, or to be a fully online program, you want to work at the same time, you can click one of these. So you have all, and then let me just go all the way at the bottom of this page. It gives you directions on how to search. It gives you all these search tips, what each one of them means, and how you want to search it. But let's go back up. Let's say you are a high school student, you want the didactic program in dietetics, you want to know the bachelor's program, and you want all of these bachelor's programs. So you're going to do degree offered, bachelor's, you go to program type, didactic program in dietetics. I want bachelor's or graduates, but you specified bachelor's. So I'll probably only pull the bachelor's, and you do a search. You are going to get every single didactic program in dietetics that offers a bachelor's degree in the US. Birmingham, all of them are didactic. Alabama, so you start with by state. It's going to go, and if you go all the way to the bottom of this page, you'll see you have close to 210 programs. Now, you live in the state. Jenna, what state should we choose? You choose a state.
I'm a little biased towards Virginia because I'm in Virginia.
Should we do Virginia? Let's do Virginia. Let's do the state of Virginia. Now you live in Virginia, or you're interested in going to Virginia, to a school in Virginia, and then you say, I want to see what DPD programs are in Virginia. You do a search, and here they are. You've got the Blacksburg, Virginia Polytech Institute. You have the James Madison University program. You have Norfolk State University, one in Petersburg. They're all here. So you can refine your search. Now, let's say you want it to be, you don't care if it's bachelor's or master's, we're going to undo that one, but you want it to be a fully online program. There's none in Virginia. So now you know, okay, well, I need to look somewhere else. If I were you, I'd do nothing. But I know, let's say there's one in Colorado. So let's go to Colorado and do a search. And there you go. You know that University of Northern Colorado is a fully online didactic program in dietetics that you can use. We have several of them. If you decide you want to see how many online programs across the US, you do a search, you leave state empty. You've got Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Anchorage, Phoenix, here they are. These are all the fully 100% online programs, DPD programs. And DPD online programs do very well. So there's 2 pages of them, which means close to 15 programs. Gives you all of them. What do you think, Jenna? Anything else you want me to show in this directory?
I think that's a very good starting point for high school students, especially with like refining like, okay, my next step is a bachelor's degree, and telling them to start with the DPD coursework. Because once you get into then master's and doctoral, I think that then refers to if you want to do a combined dietetic internship or if you want to explore coordinated programs. But as far as that first step, I think this shows a good where to start.
Yep. So Jenna, I'm going to go with your Virginia didactic programs, and let's choose the Blacksburg, Virginia program. Now, what you do, you out of the list, you say, I want 4 programs. You find 4 programs you really want, and you are seeing yourself being in these programs. Then what you do, you go in here and you see the program director is Miss Heather Cox, right? This is the phone number, and this is her email. And then you contact Mrs. Cox, and you send an email inquiring about the program. Or if you want to read a little bit more about the program, make sure it fits you in. You access the website right here. You read up and you go, wow, yes, this is the program I want. I want to talk to Mrs. Cox and see if she can meet with me or give me more information, or I want to find out when is the next information session for the program so I can attend it. So my biggest advice is go on this website, find all the programs that you're interested in. After you visit their website, you read them, then grab the email of the program director, send them an email, and ask if they're having an information session, if it's online, if it's in person, and attend the information sessions offered by these, either by their admission program or by the faculty themselves. I used to give the information sessions myself for our program, but also our admission program used to give information sessions. So you might have a lot of options.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think when I'm sure when a student is like, "Oh, well, what do I like specifically ask them?" I think one thing, and this is exactly what I did, where because I was going through community college, wanting to make sure that I was taking the right prereqs exactly that lined up with transferring in nicely. That could be, checking to make sure, like talking with that director of being like, "Hey, am I like these are the classes I'm planning on taking? Do you think that this is a good setup for transfer?" And asking like the right questions as far as like student size, getting to know more about like yeah the program and seeing if it's a right fit for you. But I think definitely making sure that when you do write that email that you have a direct like call to action and you show an interest and that you've done your research. I think that's the biggest thing, and showing that you did look at the website um, is the biggest thing. But having a program director see your face just 100% helps make you more noticeable for actually getting into that program. But thank you so much for sharing the website. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jenna, guess what else you learn when you send an email to a program director? Are they going to be responsive?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to answer you within a week, or are they never going to answer you? That tells you a lot about the program and how much attention you're going to get,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, it tells you something. So responsive program directors are going to be responsive mentors typically, and they're going to be better advisors typically. Not always. Sometimes you go into a university that has 5 or 6 faculty, then maybe the program director is too busy and not responsive, but other faculty will advise you. That's great. But in small programs, it really says a lot about how responsive the program is to the students too. So it's a good also idea for you to see how much attention you're going to get when you're in the program.
Absolutely. And I think that segues nicely into what makes a program a good program. So other than, looking at the responses of like what type of email you get back when you send out those questions, what are other good things students can look out for finding a good program?
Yeah, when students would come to me, of course, you know, they often ask me a lot of questions about our outcomes. What's your pass rate on the exam, on the national exam, RD exam, right? How many years is going to take me to finish? What courses do I have to retake? They would ask all these questions. So what makes a good program for you is one that's going to have the support and the resources that you need to support your learning. So try to check on that. Do you have any help that you need with learning? Do you need tutoring? See if they have that support available to you. With dietetics, check if they have a good pass rate on the exam. That tells a lot. That says a lot about the program. Look at their outcomes. Ask the program director about their outcomes. Do all students graduate on time? If they don't, why do you find delay in the student? Wow, what happens? Look at the length of the program. Is it going to be a 2-year, which you finish on time, or is for some reason it's 2.5 years, right? I mean, I went once and looked at a dietetic internship, and the dietetic internship, instead of the 1,000 hours minimum for ACEND, had 2,400 hours. The students were almost a year, 2 years in that internship. Now, the students in it valued it and wanted it. But is that for you? Are you willing to give up on 1 year of salary earnings, right? And instead, you're paying into that program. Look at costs of the program. Of course, cost is huge, and universities vary hugely in cost. Not only that, universities give you the cost and tuition, but it never ends up being that. How much scholarships you're going to get, how much money they're going to give you. Sometimes if you tell a university that's, I don't think I'm going to do this, I'm considering this other one because they gave me more money, the university may be able to top off some more money for you, because they always have these fellowships lying around that they can give to different students as incentives to bring them in. So see how much money you can have the university cover for your tuition. Of course, we talked about location. Where do you want to live? And then, you know, if you are going for a coordinated program, the one that goes all the way through and combines the internship together with the DPD, these are our coordinated program, make sure that they're finding your placement, and you don't, like, your placement at the hospital or at the, you know, your rotations for your supervised practice, and that you're not the one finding those facilities, because that's very hard for students to find their own unless you've been working at a facility. You know, if you work at a hospital, it's easy for you to get the hospital to have you do your rotations at the hospital. But if you don't work at a hospital, if you're a newly high school student, it's very hard for you to find those rotations. So these are all questions you can ask. I don't know, Jenna, if you think you have any other things to recommend that they look for in a good program.
Yeah, I think these are all very good, especially seeing how the program itself is responsive and how it supports you as a student, because you're paying good money to get that good education. And I think definitely being very critical, both like and critical with yourself and with the program of like, do I fit with this program? Because it can be perfect on paper, but if you're not willing to move across the country, like a lot of people, then that ultimately makes that program not right for you, and that's okay. And to not think of it as you're missing out on a potential experience at this really great program, because as you showed in the directory, there's like over 200 programs to choose from. So that's over 200 opportunities for you to make that program your own and for you to make the most out of it. But I think, no, you gave a really good overview as far as what students can look for, because I think ultimately the common thread is you have to know yourself and you have to know what you want to get out of it. Because, I mean, that's the other thing with having so many different options is the best way to make a decision and to not get analysis paralysis is you have to know yourself first, because that helps cut a lot of the noise out. Is if money is your biggest driver of saving money, well, that cuts out a lot of programs because there's, you know, somewhere you'd have to move or somewhere you'd have to pay out of state. And I think kind of first doing that self-assessment of what your non-negotiables are while still keeping an open mind. But first knowing your non-negotiables is the first step of finding what makes a good program. But you know, I think you covered all the good stuff for students finding that out. So, yeah. And then going more into like we've just continuously building and chipping away at like uncovering different things about the bachelor's degree, different things about the master's degree. But I think another thing too, similarly to that, there's so many different avenues a student can take to becoming a dietitian. There's also just many avenues in dietetics that a person can practice as a dietitian in. And so for when it comes to the coursework and how or when a student should actually figure out what avenue of dietetics to take, whether it's food service, clinical, community, which area to work in, when should a student like worry or have that on their mind?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, don't have it on your mind. Choose the program that works for you. Dietetics, that's the beauty of dietetics, right? It's a killer of dietetics, but it's the beauty of dietetics is when you graduate, you can do 100 different things. So many jobs are yours. You can choose so many different ways to go. And once you're that registered dietitian, you can have that choice. Even if you end up with a sports nutrition, concentration, a clinical, whatever it is, when you graduate, you have that RDN. People are going to look at that RDN credential, and then you can do whatever you want with that RDN credential. Now, the one thing I just want to say, we always hear that clinical is hard to get into once you leave it. And that is true. So let's say you decide to graduate, you graduate and you decide you wanted to do food service, you go into food service, 5 or 6 years later, it might be hard for you to become a clinical dietitian. This day and age with the shortage of dietitians, it may not be that hard. But when we had plenty of dietitians around, just the clinical would be the one that the hardest to move into. The rest ones you can be a clinical dietitian, become a food service dietitian, work in the community, become a nutrition educator. Don't worry about it. And as an undergrad, concentrate on your learning, get dietetics. The courses are almost identical across the programs. Get that basic dietetics degree down, and then you can decide when to specialize in your graduate degree or even after you graduate from your graduate degree. No
Absolutely.
need to specialize.
And I think that that can help alleviate some worry because it allows the student, or especially in high school, to focus on, okay, getting the degree, getting the foundations, not pigeonholing yourself. It's like that balance of keeping an open mind, but keeping your eye on the prize, and that, your time for figuring out what niche you fall in will just be as you get more time in that field. And I think one avenue of that for sure that can help you figure out what your interests are in is with networking. And networking is huge in dietetics. If you've heard at least one episode of this podcast, every guest pretty much talks about networking one way or another. And I think similarly to what you said earlier in this episode, finding out about dietetics and that as a career in high school is the biggest power ever because then that means you can just start networking sooner. And for that, do you have any advice for students in high school on ways that they can start networking when they're, an undergrad, ways to get involved to kind of set themselves up for success?
Yeah, I'm gonna demystify networking for us, Jenna. um, Networking is scary, especially for a high school student, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, how do I network? What do I do? What happens?" Think of when you connected with me, Jenna. What was it? A simple email, right?
Mhm.
Somebody told you, talk to Rayane, you sent an email, and you got a response. You may not have gotten a response from me, and then you may have tried someone else, right? It's not, don't get scared of the networking. All you have to do, people when think of networking, you think of yourself in a conference with hundreds of people and people talking together and being very engaged, and you are walking into the group and introducing yourself in a group of unknowns. That is not what networking is these days. Networking is these days sending the email to the faculty, introducing yourself, and then when they respond, don't not answer. Respond and go, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Thank you so much." Make yourself excited and just it's emails. And emails are not so difficult to write and to do. Just send the email. And these days you can put it in AI and say, AI, write me a nice email for a faculty in dietetics about getting into their program. And AI will craft you a beautiful email, but please read that email and make it your own and personalize it to the program, right? Because faculty can tell right away if AI wrote that message. So, so it is not, networking is not so difficult. How do you do it very easily? Can you volunteer when you're in high school? Maybe you can volunteer at your school food service right there. There might be a dietitian there. You can volunteer at extension. Go to the food bank and see if you, I had so many students at the food bank. I've had high school students email me and ask me if they can interview me. Offer to interview a faculty. Why not? You learn so much. You can volunteer at the Women, Infants, and Children program. Any program in your community that takes volunteers, feel free to volunteer. And that could be 2 hours a week. We're not talking about, just tell yourself, well, I'm going to assume I'm going to go get my hair done for 2 hours a week. It's not that much work, away from your day to day. You can work in the hospital dietetics department, all of the stuff. And just by virtue of you working and volunteering, you're making connections, and that's networking. Now, you don't have to be talking to unknown individuals, to strangers. I would never do that. That is not me. I would consider myself the worst networker if that is. But when Jenna emails me, well, how do I network? I respond right away and tell Jenna, yes, let's do this. It's exciting. Let's make more. There's my network. Now Jenna's part of my network. That's what networking is about. And it's not as hard as people make it sound. And I think I wish people would demystify it.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you did because I think the word network just kind of like causes a ball to just sit in your stomach where it's like, ugh, like I have to network. And I think it's thinking of networking instead of like casting a blind, like, fishing out, it's like a network starts with like roots where it's like just close proximity and then it grows out into a bunch of branches. It's not like you don't start your network with all the branches in place. It's like you just start with one tiny little root that takes place. And for me in this context, it was me just shooting you an email. And that's just a tiny little root. And now we have 9, 10 episodes. Like we just have so many episodes together. And it all started with like that one email. And yeah, like networking is, I think a lot of people see networking as like the end outcome of what it looks like, where really no, networking are those little like emails that you send out to different program directors and showing that enthusiasm and having an intention behind it, I think are the biggest things. And that as a high school student, it starts with like volunteering and talking to people, but not, it doesn't have to be strangers. It can be, your volunteer supervisor or the person that you work with at the coffee shop. All those things can get put into your network for sure.
Yeah, and Jenna, may I add one quick one? In high school or when you get to college, talk to your faculty. Just at the end of the class, stop by and say, I have a question for you. Come up with a question. Question about the material. Just ask them. Just say, I'm interested in nutrition. Do you have any advice? Maybe ask, don't be afraid to show yourself to your faculty and just ask a question. You're not talking to them about their family and about their life. That's not networking. That's stressful. I would never, like, there's no way. I'd be the worst networker if that's what I have to do. No, just ask questions like say, well, I'm struggling with this assignment that you gave us. Could you help me out? It gets the faculty to know you. You make a connection, and then all of a sudden they're here to help you. I am thinking of getting into dietetics. Do you have any idea where I can go volunteer? That's all you, networking is asking for assistance, and people love to help. So, start now, get yourself used to it, and you'll find that people are so receptive.
Absolutely. And I cannot agree with that more, where the last thing you want to do is feel like you're all on your own with figuring out dietetics. That's the opposite. If you are interested even in the slightest about a certain program, ask yourself, why am I interested in this program? And then use that to help you frame what you ask the program director. Like, what piqued your interest? Was it, oh, the location? Oh, I want to learn more about living in this area, or like how I can best, if I did go to this college, make the most out of it here. I think first, just yeah, starting with what piqued my interest and what gaps in knowledge do I need to fill and who can I ask about it? And that really is like networking at the core, which I'm really glad that you kind of like flushed out. And so there's two more questions that I have, and one is about just if we covered finances a lot with like, all the different programs, community college, saving, things like that. But do you have any, and we talked about like deciding with programs based off of the cost is the biggest thing, but are there any other like notes or things that you would want to recommend high school students to just keep in mind when it comes to being, financially savvy about choosing programs?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing is compare, right? Compare your colleges, compare the cost, compare everything, and know that the tuition that's on the website is not the final tuition. There are scholarships, and you have to apply early. Don't be procrastinating in your application. When you apply early, the university usually has fellowships and scholarships to give you. And if you are late applying, putting your application in, you miss the deadline for these scholarships. And you could miss something $20,000 in scholarship that can make that program half its price. So get informed about all of this. What are the scholarships available? What is the tuition finally with the scholarship? What's the end? Cost of living, books, materials. Do they want you to buy a lab coat? Just get a big number from each university and then compare them. Compare the universities that you're interested in, right? The financial aid package. Look at any stipends. Do they have work study for you? All of this. Do they, look at the universities and compare them. Also, when this is a little later, once you finish your didactic program, if you go into an internship, that's one advantage from doing a DPD with an internship versus the coordinated program all the way. Because some internships, not only are they free, some pay you money. So some you have to pay because we call them internship, but they're really not internships. They're practicums, right? They're studying and they're practicums. They're not true paid internship. They are, studying practicums like the nursing practicum and OT practicum and physical therapy practicum inside the program. We just happen to put that practicum outside the undergrad. But somehow, because we put it outside the undergrad, it allowed some hospitals who want to hire dietitians and who want to attract to pay you money for it, or give it to you for free, or pay you a stipend, or sometimes it's free, but they're paying for all your food and your parking and so you have a lot of great different internships with a lot of different prices out there. So that's again, when you finish that DPD and choose that undergrad DPD plus internship route, you might be earning money in that internship, which is a huge plus. You don't hear a nursing student earning money in their nursing practicum. That's a huge plus. But then, so once you do that, look at the return on investment, right? You're going to graduate with a master's in nutrition. Probably by the time you graduate, it's going to be 70, 80,000 start, I'm thinking. Probably look at the return on investment. Make sure that the debt that you're going to accumulate is not going to be much more than 80,000. You don't want your debt to be more than what you're working, what your salary. Give you an example. Physician assistant, they got it, they're not being looked at very well in terms of return on investment, because physician assistants program, the average program is costing $300,000. Students are walking away with $300,000 in debt. But the average salary starting of a physician assistant is $120,000. That is not good return on investment. And that actually, you're losing money over years. Yeah, the salary looks higher than the 80,000 you're going to make as a dietitian, but that's actually not. You're really losing a lot of money because you're getting taxed on it. And then think of how many years you need to make up that $200,000 that you need to pay off. So thinks about a lot of that return on investment. This is huge for the government right now. That's all they're talking about is return on investment. And then use tools like College Combat. In College Combat, you go on the website and you put 2 colleges and it just evaluates them on for you for tuition, financial aid, all of that. But take it with a grain of salt, because I did evaluate my program, like my college that I used to work at, with another one. And I looked at it and it showed that, completion rates were not that huge. And I'm like, oh, wait a second. In dietetics, we had 100% completion rate. Why is it saying that our college had 80%? Because the other programs were 80%, but the dietetics was amazing. So look, the dietetics program may not fit that college. So it's better to talk to the university. But if you want to play around and have fun, go to College Combat and look at it. The most important thing, take the emotion out of it. Try to, how I compared it to a wedding? How can you take the emotion out of it? It's very hard. But if you can, take the emotion out of it. I'm a fan of tables. Make a table, put your universities in a columns, put the things that matter in your rows, and compare the price, compare the pass rate, compare rate how much you like it, rate how you like the location. I did this with both my kids. We rated everything and we scored it. And you know what? One time a program score came low, and I was like, well, that's your lowest. You don't want it. But my daughter was like, but I want to go there. I was like, okay. So it told you still want to go there. That is, again, a big sign. So even if the program scored low based on everything you're counting and you find yourself upset that it scored low, that tells you this is a program that's high on your priority. So making a table with pros and cons is so helpful. Make sure you do that.
Awesome. And that comes with doing your research and using those resources that you showed that can kind of help point you in the right direction. And you also gave so many great points as well as what things are important, like pass rate, tuition, class size, location. You gave a lot of great starting points for students to kind of look at, especially with them being in high school. And then the last question is just that call to action of if you're a high school student and you're like, okay, well, what can I start doing now? So like what classes can they take to prepare, to kind of point them in the right direction of setting themselves up for when they do start undergrad.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about connect with the faculty. That's very important. But also, if you want to take AP classes or you want to take undergrad classes, make sure you're taking a lot of the biology and the chemistry and the sciences. If you want statistics, those are going to help you out. I always took math classes. I've always thought I loved math, and I was always enjoyed math. So for my classes, I took a lot of math in high school. And guess what? I got to nutrition, and I was struggling. I had no biology, I had no chemistry, all I had was math. And yes, now I am really good at research. I really can do numbers, and it's great. I'm not regretful I took math, but boy, did I struggle those first 2 years. It was not a fun 2 years for me because I needed that biology. I needed that chemistry, anatomy, and physiology. So if in high school you can take biology, chemistry, that would be very helpful. But often those courses will count towards electives when you go to college. Don't think that they're gonna erase your need to take your Bio 101 and Bio 102. They're just gonna erase your need to take electives. But by taking AP classes now, my daughter shaved off almost a year from her college. That's thousands of dollars of savings. College ended up being 3 years instead of 4 years. Huge savings that you can give yourself. So yeah, electives can count a lot of courses, and you can actually save yourself a lot of time. And the APs can give you that background to really be able to come out strong and succeed right away. If you can do statistics, that statistics is always a hard class. It could really help you out as an AP course. I'm trying to think, Jenna, any other classes you can think of? Maybe psych, humanities, psych, but psych is an easy sort of class. Don't waste the AP on it. Better to do biology, chemistry, so that you can repeat those concepts in college and then get the A's in college instead of struggling because it's the first time you see those concepts.
Absolutely. And I think one too that I found to be helpful was so when I took my normal biology and chemistry, I found that I was strong at that in high school. So then when I went to community college, I was like, okay, I'm really good like in these classes. But then I found that when I did my AP coursework in history, which sounds weird, but when I transferred into my community college with those AP credits, it counted as my history credits. And so I was able to then allocate more time. Just, I kid you not, my entire bachelor's degree was just all sciences pretty much with like two ethics courses. Because I knocked out a lot of my humanities beforehand. That gave me time to really just like dig into it. So I think you offer like a great standpoint for if you're not really strong in the sciences to start early in the sciences. But if you know what your strengths are, then you can use AP classes to tailor to what things you can shave off and what time you can save. But no, I think those are great recommendations.
Yeah, that's great advice. Spoken from an expert who's been through it.
It's an expert on both sides for sure. But Dr. AbuSabha, thank you so much for sharing. I think this is a great foundational starting point. And I think for people listening in, knowing that this isn't the end, this is the beginning. Like this episode is served as a launch pad for you knowing where to look and knowing where to do your research and having that assurance of to not being afraid to reach out and ask for help if you have any questions in this process. But thank you so much for sharing with us.
And thank you, Jenna, for having me. Have a great day.